All right, welcome back, Vendetta Sports Fantasy Show. Today is Monday, October 19th. We have Jackson Law from the Tandemonium podcast, the Maximum Football Series, the Backyard Football Series, the NFL 2K5 Series. Jackson, what's going on today?
That is an extensive list. Wow, I
It
didn't
is.
I didn't
It's
realize I had that much going on.
it's a
Well, I'm doing
growing
good,
list.
man. Doing good. It is a growing list, ever growing. It's never going to stop growing, probably.
So we're here to talk about week 6 of the NFL season, fantasy implications here. The week is pretty much over, except for the Cowboys Cardinals game, but we will cover everything else here. First game on the docket, Titans Texans. Big game, 42-36. Overtime, Tennessee able to pull it out. Jackson, do you have any fantasy implications here?
Well, I was happy Deshaun Watson had a great game. He's on my fantasy team in our group league, so I was happy to see him finally put up some big points. I know you were going up against Derrick Henry, so I'm sorry about that.
Every
That's
week.
that's rough. That's rough. Um, But yeah, I mean, it was a great game. If you had someone from either side, really, I also had Fuller. Fuller had a great day, 6 receptions, 123 yards and a touchdown. Tannehill had a decent day too, which I saw the stat where I think this is the first time in NFL history where they had a quarterback go over 300 yards and a running back go for 200 yards. So it was a huge day if you had one of those two on your squad.
The Texans defense is absolutely brutal. But I have a couple things here. Brandon Cooks, little bounce back performance here. He's now scored in back to back weeks, 9 receptions in this one. Is Brandon Cooks now reliable somehow?
Uh, I wouldn't say so. Just because from Cooks in the past, what the pedestal that people have put him up on, he's never really lived up to that. So I mean, he's been getting open. I mean, he scored past 2 games, like you said. But this Texans offense, this Texans team as a whole, I just don't really trust, which is unfortunate. Save my boy Deshaun, get him out of there. Uh, but yeah, I don't. I wouldn't see it continuing. But he's a decent, like, if you're in a pretty deep league, then I think he could be decent for you then.
AJ Brown able to get 2 touchdowns. Give me a quick maybe yes or no on both of these. Is AJ Brown a top 10 wide receiver? And Anthony Ferkser, 8 receptions, 113 yards, and a touchdown. Jonnu Smith is now hurt. Do you trust him to be a tight end starter?
For AJ Brown, go to him real quick. Um, I would say probably top 10 just from the sole fact that he's the best receiver in that lineup, and Tannehill's got to throw to somebody, and he's kind of filling in. We keep going back to DeAndre Hopkins, but he's kind of fulfilling that role where he's that guy where no matter where or when and what situation you throw it to him, he's going to come down with the ball. Even though he only had 56 receiving yards, he's obviously a threat as you get closer to the end zone. And in fantasy, that's what really matters. As for the other guy, I don't know. I don't know too much about him, honestly. Uh, Tannehill loves his tight ends, even back in his Miami days. Those were his favorite targets to throw to, because they were always seeming to trade away their receivers and get try to get some tight ends surrounded around him, throwing in some like double tight end sets. So with Tannehill as the quarterback, I think he could be sustainable at that position.
Bengals, Colts pull out a thriller 31-27. They were down much of the game, able to come back. A couple things in this one again. AJ Green bounces back for 96 yards. He's looked kind of dead. But T. Higgins goes for 125. He's starting to emerge as their leading receiver. Do you buy T. Higgins long term as a guy that can turn into a fantasy stud here?
I'm leaning towards yes, but it's not like 100% yes. And the only reason why is because for fantasy owners, you've got to rely on Joe Burrow getting touchdowns, and he's not getting touchdowns. He's been a pretty decent quarterback so far to start out. It's not been a terrible rookie campaign so far, even though their record doesn't really show it. They've been competitive for most of those games, but it all kind of lays on Joe Burrow's shoulders if he's going to be sustainable as a fantasy target.
Yeah, and Joe Mixon also gets hurt in this one. Had a bad day, 18 carries, 54 yards, but he hurt his foot. If he were to miss any time, Giovanni Bernard would be the starter, who's actually been pretty good in the past. Is Bernard a guy you'd pick up, maybe fill in as a play? Because he's actually not bad. He was a second-round pick, North Carolina, can do some things in the passing game. Bigger opportunity. He could actually be pretty good here.
Yeah, I'd definitely pick him up. Right now's the time. A lot of guys injured. If you're looking for someone, especially if you're in an auction type league, you need someone on the fairly cheap. Pick him up real quick, and you got the spot. I definitely pick him up. It wouldn't hurt. And like I said, the Bengals have been pretty competitive despite what their record shows. Even with Joe Burrow getting a large passing load, like you said, he can catch out of the backfield. He can run also. So yeah, he'd be a pretty solid pickup.
I think Phillip Rivers has looked dead for much of the year, but he actually had a pretty good day in this one. 371 yards, 3 touchdowns, a pick. But I think the real takeaway here to me is T.Y. Hilton, 1 catch, 11 yards, and he's been pretty much awful all year. I don't think he's eclipsed the 30-yard mark in any game. I mean, what do you do with that guy? Because he's been terrible pretty much all year.
Yeah, I'd like to know because he's on my team right now, and he is riding the bottom of that bench. Uh, but yeah, don't fall for Phillip Rivers. Don't fall in love with him after this game. He's been doing stuff like this for like 5 or 6 years, where he has a solid game or two, and everyone's like, yes, Phillip Rivers. This is the Phillip Rivers that's going to turn our franchise around, or this is the Phillip Rivers that's going to do really well in fantasy, and then he's going to go out and lay an egg like for the next 3 weeks. So don't fall too much in love with Rivers. And for Hilton, suppose him, I don't know, man. That's a tough situation right there. And I'm speaking to me because he's filled up a slot on my roster.
Falcons, Vikings. Falcons actually got their first win of the year, 40-23. Matt Ryan is back. Amazing what having Julio Jones does for you. 4 touchdowns. Not a ton.
And getting rid of Dan Quinn.
Yeah, not a ton we got to really spend on here. Julio Jones back in a big way. Ridley had another good day. Of course he did. Not a ton on the Falcons side of things, but Viking side of things, Kirk Cousins, a lot of garbage time stuff. More so my takeaways are on the Viking side. Alexander Madison, turns out he's not Dalvin Cook. 26 rushing yards. Ugh, wanted to throw up from watching him.
Yeah, that's not good at all.
Not going to cut it.
Team, this Vikings team is just really bad. I think they're going to keep rolling with Cousins just because they think that Cousins can tank them to possibly getting the number 1 overall pick and getting a shot at Trevor Lawrence.
I think the truth of the matter is here, Dalvin Cook's the entire offense, and when he's not in the game, this is what they look like. So, yeah. But quickly here, Justin Jefferson. Now, I kind of wanted to talk about this because you did the Madden simulation for all the draft picks. Mm-hmm. And Justin Jefferson was pretty much the best rookie. According to the Madden simulation post, I'll have to link that in. 166 and 2 touchdowns in this game. He's like, would it really surprise you if he's better than Thielen this year? That's how good he's been.
No, I wouldn't be surprised. And just because never drink the Thielen juice. I've done that in the past, and I have gotten sick from it. So, but yeah, he seems like a really good option. I think they hit it out of the park on there. And, I'm just happy that I was so spot on in my Madden simulation when I created Justin Jefferson, created the beast that he was. I'll fully take credit for that.
Broncos Patriots, don't have to spend a ton of time here. Ugly game, 18-12. Brandon McManus, 24 fantasy points. Highest scoring fantasy guy in the entire game. Drew Lock, 189 yards, 2 picks. Brutal. Cam Newton, 157 yards, 2 picks. Cam was kind of on fire, but can you trust any of these quarterbacks here? Locke or Newton the rest of the way?
Not really. Newton, maybe, but just because of his running ability.
Right.
The running ability is still there, but his passing this week was very lackluster, and that does get me a little bit worried about Newton, because which that could maybe be a rhythm thing. Maybe it's just he hasn't fully recovered from COVID yet. But like I said, he had 10 carries, so obviously it's not his lungs that are the problem right now. Something else is wrong. Which also he doesn't have the weapons, which Brady never had the weapons either. But it's going to be difficult to see with Cam moving forward.
Julian Edelman, he had more points throwing the ball than he did catching the ball. 2 receptions for 8 yards. 1 to 10 panic meter on Edelman.
10, absolutely.
Wow. I'd go 6. But you could very well be right. We don't have to spend a ton of time on
maybe a 9 or 8. Maybe that was an instant overreaction, but it's still high. It's still high.
Anything on the Redskins Giants? I'd like to skip that game if possible.
No, both the teams suck. If you've got someone on their team, then you drafted horribly.
The ultimate suck ball. Ravens Eagles. Carson Wentz almost had a little comeback there, but they fall 2 points short, 30-28. Wentz came back strong. Lamar Jackson had a good rushing day. But, I mean, the Ravens are just continuing to do the same thing they always do. Mark Andrews either has 2 touchdowns or he does this, 21 yards and nothing. Mark Ingram got hurt, but it sounds like he'll be fine, so the 3-headed monster still stays there. Philadelphia is the interesting one because now Zach Ertz is hurt. And now Miles Sanders is hurt. What do you do with the Eagles' weapons? Because once again, Carson Wentz needs to put the entire team on his back because there's nothing
They
there.
have weapons?
What do you do with this team?
Text Chad every Sunday night and make sure he's okay. That's what I do.
Fair enough. Fair enough. We can move on. Go ahead.
Yeah. Oh, I was gonna say it's another shit show of a team, and it's the same old story. That if you listen to the lead word, you hear Chad talk about it all the time. There's no help around him around Wentz to begin with, and they're all the weapons that he does have. They're all injury prone, which means they're not really worth it in fantasy to spend picks on it unless you pick them off a waiver wire or something like that, or they're like super late in your draft. But yeah, not good.
Browns, Steelers. Steelers kicked the shit out of them, 38-7. I got to officially defeat Pro Football Focus today, who officially declared the white flag after years of saying he was this generational prospect, can't miss, belongs in the Hall of Fame. It turns out this Baker Mayfield guy who, I said really couldn't play that much is kind of terrible. Weird.
Yeah, and they've been beating up on some pretty crappy teams recently, and now they finally face a real NFL squad, a real NFL defense, and the real colors of the Browns, which is exactly that because the crap showed through this Sunday. But
the sad thing is, I think they actually have a good team. It's just Mayfield's horrible.
Yeah, and I just don't think they're that well coached. I don't know what is up with their coaching carousel that keeps going on every year. Brand new coach. You can never get no consistency in the system hasn't helped Mayfield. But yeah, I agree with you. I don't think Mayfield is that great of a quarterback to begin with.
Roethlisberger didn't have a really big day, but it was mostly because they were up and Mayfield threw the pick 6 and whatever. But I do have one thing on the Steelers. It looks like Chase Claypool's for real. And this begs the question, Juju Smith-Schuster, 2 receptions, 6 yards. I think he might be the third best wide receiver on his own team. Is that crazy?
No, it's not crazy. I don't know if he's third or second, but he's definitely lost that being the number one guy.
I mean,
And yeah,
he's doing nothing. Juju Smith-Schuster. He's doing absolutely nothing.
I think the last game they had, I'd have to go back and look at it real quick and see. But how many? He's got 3 touchdowns. Okay. Yeah, it's not great.
Not a ton of yardage though. The yardage is what really concerns me here because his yardage has gone down every single week. I'll pull up his exact game logs here. But week 1, 69 yards. Week 2, 48 yards. Week 3, 43 yards. Week 4, 28 yards. Week 5, 6 yards. It's the yardage to me that's concerning.
Yeah, well, like you said, the emergence of Chase Claypool and the attention that other teams are giving to Juju right now.
And I think Deontay Johnson's really good. He just hasn't been healthy the last 2 weeks.
Yeah. So yeah, you're right. He's falling.
Chicago Bears, Carolina Panthers, not a ton here. David Montgomery, his typical 3 yards a carry. Mike Davis kind of came back down to earth, but he did score. Bridgewater, not a good day, but not a ton of takeaways there. Lions, Jags. DAndre Swift, big game. 116 yards, 2 touchdowns. Looking like the job might be his.
Yeah. Too bad he was on my bench that game.
What would you do with DAndre Swift? Because really talented guy. He was my number 1 running back coming out of the draft. Kind of showed it in this one. What do you do with DAndre Swift the rest of the way? Because they still have Peterson, they still have Kerryon Johnson.
Yeah, it's tough because you can tell. I mean, because he had less carries than Adrian Peterson, even though Peterson had 15 and Swift had 14. Swift is the one that made the big plays. I feel like Swift is the running back of the future. So this year, it's going to be pretty up and down. It's going to be hard to tell if Swift is going to have a good game or not because he had one game early on in the season where he did okay, but obviously this is his big breakout game. But I don't anticipate next week to be like a fantastic game. Like he's not going to do this night in and night out this year. Maybe he can in the future, or maybe they kind of hand the keys off to him later on in the season. But it's difficult to tell. But like I said, he's the running back of the future. Hopefully, for my sake and for the other Swift owners out there this year, as the season goes on, and if you need that last little push to get into your playoffs, maybe they start giving Swift more carries and more of the workload.
Typical Jaguars game, fell behind, got some garbage time stuff. Nothing there. The Jets are complete unmitigated disaster. The Dolphins took full advantage of it. Nothing really.
Even Tua got in.
They
were so bad.
I mean, not a ton to go over there. Fitzpatrick kind of tore him up. Mike Gesicki had no receptions, but the other 2 tight ends did somehow. But
yeah, that's kind of worrying about Gesicki.
Yeah. Other than that, not a ton of takeaways. But we do have a Packers-Bucks. Packers go up 10-0 and then decided to give up 38 straight. What do you got here? Fluky game by the Packers? Not a fluky game. Aaron Rodgers, not good. 3 fantasy points total. Just an all-around bad performance.
Oh, it was very bad. And I'm going to, just because of how they played the other 4 games this season, even though it hasn't been against the greatest competition, I'm going to say it's a fluke for right now. And maybe they prove me wrong here in the next couple of weeks. Maybe they kind of fall off a little bit. Maybe what we've been saying about Rodgers is true. Maybe he came out on fire. Maybe that was just because of the big break that happened in the summer. Maybe it was just because there was no training camp, no preseason, or where there was training camp, but it wasn't like super heavy training camp. Kind of came in a bit more fresh. Maybe that's what aided in it, and he was playing a little pissed off because they drafted Jordan Love. Maybe the tank is starting to kind of, get closer to empty quicker than what Rodgers and what anyone else was anticipating. But I'm just going to say it was a fluke. It was a great job, and they just didn't execute on their game plan, whereas the Bucs did.
I just want to pat myself on the back here a little bit because I'm the only guy left on Ronald Jones Island. I'm the only guy that believes in the guy. All this year is hyping up during the offseason. Keyshawn Vaughn, this, give me a break. Ronald Jones is good. 113 yards, 2 touchdowns. Nobody was in with me. I'm the only guy left in the foxhole. Now everybody wants to join in. This Ronald Jones guy's good. What's the deal here?
No, he is good. He is good. I've never said that he's not good. It's just it's a crowded backfield.
He looks bigger.
I'm just saying I've never said.
He looks bigger and stronger this year.
Yeah, no, and well, everyone probably thought that he wasn't going to get that many touches because they added Fournette, but that was just whatever. That was a dumb decision, and he's been injured pretty much for most of the time that they've had him anyway. So, but yeah, Jones is good. Jones is good, and he can be a great target out of the backfield too. He only had 8 yards receiving, but it's because Gronk decided to be Gronk again.
Yeah. By the way, Gronk. I mean, he looked like molasses out there, but he did have a good fantasy day.
Mm-hmm.
Last one we're going to talk about here because we want to go watch football again. San Francisco, LA Rams. Jared Goff, bad day, but that's kind of who he is. Jimmy Garoppolo had a pretty good day, 3 touchdowns, but it was a lot of short dink and dunk stuff. The thing I want to talk about here is Sean McVay lied to me. He said Cam Akers was going to get a lot of carries. Where was he? He was nowhere to be found. Witness protection. Couldn't find him. 0 carries. What the hell, Sean McVay? What? Darrell Henderson looks pretty good. 14 carries.
It was a ruse. It fooled you, and it fooled all the other fantasy owners and head coaches in the league.
So what do we do with Darrell Henderson? Because this is another good game by Darrell Henderson. Malcolm Brown got some carries, but didn't have a great fantasy day. I think it's time to just say this guy from Memphis is pretty good. Yeah,
no, he's pretty good.
He was great in college for Memphis too.
Yeah, no, he was. He definitely was. And just living down the road from the university and hearing everyone talk, just my interactions with them, they love the guy. But going forward, I don't know yet, and need to see a little bit more of him first.
All right, Jackson, we're gonna go watch football. Do you have any other takeaways here?
Not really. No. Cardinals right now are putting the slack down on Cowboys. I was expecting that, but
make sure to follow Jackson on Twitter. JLaw1995, I think.
Yes.
JLaw1995.
Sophie will put it somewhere on the screen.
Yeah. Trey Daubert for myself, media_vendetta. Hit that subscribe button. Jackson's VU series have done wonders for the subscribe numbers, so make sure to support our videos. It motivates us to do shows like this. So thank you guys for watching, and until next time, we'll see you soon.